Do you think that changing weather patterns are causing cropping shifts?
We see shifts as a manufacturer, and we see different challenges coming to us from our customer base. I believe it's possibly the customer base for particular products that has changed a little bit rather than the weather patterns. You know, we see maybe changing weather patterns from year to year. Of course, last year we all know what weather looked like across the Midwest versus the fall of 2010, which was a drastic opposite. But I don't believe that as a producer, my brother and I have faced drastically different weather challenges than my dad did and hit the 40 years that he's been farming, or that my grandfather has in the 50, 60 years that he farmed before that. Well, I don't see different weather than what my dad does. Obviously, the growing conditions I have in northern Illinois for producing a corn crop and the challenges I face are drastically different from a producer in the Red River Valley who faces drastically different challenges than a producer in southern Manitoba for growing the same crops.
You kind of hit the nail right on the head. With the commodity prices the way they are, you know, it's become, and the genetics available, we are seeing shorter maturity corn being planted into areas that never entertained planting corn before.
Absolutely.
You
areas
know,
of the country we once considered pretty marginal for
right. So
corn.
your window of opportunity is now very small. You know, you may have 73-day maturity corn, but we've got to get it planted at the right time and make sure we get it off at the right time, because a frost is a frost, whether it happens in Manitoba, Minnesota, Iowa, you name it. We only have a finite window there to work in.
One of the things that happens is the value of the crop has changed the ability and the willingness to manage that risk.
We've seen an 80% growth in corn production in the western provinces of Canada over the last decade. But I think we as producers have also grown our understanding of agronomy drastically. I think there's been an exponential shift in a farmer's understanding of soil science and crop science and the effect of soil tilth, the effect of organic matter and soil productivity, fertility on plant growth and on yield potential over the last decade or decade and a half that has allowed us to do that. But also there's been some new tillage practices, of course, and equipment technology has allowed us to adopt some of these tillage practices or soil management practices 2 decades ago wouldn't have been feasible.
You can manage moisture consumption, you can manage compaction, you can manage uniform soil pressure, you can manage controlled traffic, you can manage your footprint under the soil with your tillage tools, you can manage locking your residue to your soil to prevent wind blowing, loss of topsoils, things of that sort. And our technology is at least from our standpoint in the agronomic design, we're trying to give the user a wider range of risk management for all those functions that we talk about. Now, planter example is excellent. Our closing systems are designed to cover about 90% of the conditions our customers are going to run into. Competitors are only doing 1/3 of that.
The groves are being bulldozed down, they're taking out windbreaks, you know, more available acres. We've got CRP acres coming out of the program back into production. So really focusing on, to your point, managing some risk here. We're looking at fertility practices. But now with all these trees gone, we're getting into areas where wind can be an issue. And that's one thing my particular product really has to deal with is varying wind conditions.
Case IH, the engineers, I imagine, have to be thinking about more flexibility in terms of how they design products because they're being used maybe in a little bit different environments these days.
What the push to be ready is all about is risk mitigation. Weather, compaction, cropping patterns, productivity risk, commodity price risk. These are all things as farmers that are for us to manage. And what separates the successful farmers today and even more so into the future as these risks continue to grow and these challenges continue to come at us will be those farmers that successfully manage risk versus those that won't or those that aren't as tolerant to the risk or are more concerned about the risk. So our entire goal is to help producers be ready for that risk.
It really comes down to 2 basic factors, and that's timeliness, being in the field at the right time.
Timeliness is paramount.
Is huge. And then the quality of the job when you're there. And that's what you look at. Any of our products, they're built around those premises. You know, we have a certain window that we need to get this job done. And when we're in there, we need to do the best job we can, because that's really what's going to end up in the grain tank at the end of the season.